Imagine walking down the sidewalk near your house and all of a sudden somebody grabs you up and you're never seen again. Tonight, on this part 1 episode of a 2-part series of disappearances, we look at stories of people who have gone missing without any trace of where they are. Did they simply just walk off to go to a new life? Or did something bad happen to them? On the Infiltrators, Scary Stories. Before we get into today's stories, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you can get notified every time that we upload a new video. Also, tonight's show is brought to you by Purple Mattress. Purple Mattress gives you the best sleep possible. It is not memory foam, it's based on a scientifically proven honeycomb pattern that will get you the best sleep guaranteed. Get 20% off of your total order now by going to bit.ly/getpurple. That's bit.ly/getpurple. That's bit.ly/getpurple. And now, true stories of people who have disappeared without any trace. Number 1. The missing girl from my town. A young girl went missing. I think she was around 5 years old. Young enough to still be using training wheels at least. She was last seen riding her bike in her backyard. Where I lived, the media would talk about her every day. Any new evidence they found, they presented because this happened just a mile or two from where I lived, and in the county where my brother worked. It turned out that this girl's neighbor had been the one to kill her, and his wife turned him in. I'll always applaud this woman for this. You always hear about a spouse trying to hide their significant other's crimes. My brother, who is great at getting inside people's head, told me that he made it seem like he was relating to the guy, which he said he was repulsed by, but had to do it to get an honest confession. He said the guy wasted no time about bragging what he did, smiling the entire time. He said he invited the little girl inside his house, got a trash bag, and used it to suffocate her. He described every detail about how long it took, how tight he held the bag to her, and how thrilling it was to be in control of someone else's life. But the most messed up part? He admitted that he rode with the father, helping this terrified man search for his missing girl. The idea that the poor man was sitting right next to his daughter's killer the entire time, bawling his eyes out to the man responsible for his pain. It's chilling. When the father found out, he begged my brother to let him alone in a room with the guy for just a few minutes. My brother, being an overprotective father himself, was seriously considering this guy letting him have some alone time to speak to him. But another officer, who also felt bad for the father, told him they couldn't do that because they didn't want the father killing this man and risking landing himself in prison. I believe they found the little girl, and if I'm remembering this story correctly, they found her in the same trash bag the man used to suffocate her. Number 2. The McFlurry Run. In the town I grew up in the UK, a woman in her 30s, her 3 kids, and their car all went missing. Her husband was known for being a bit of a lad, and the immediate presumption was that she'd had enough and left him. But her parents hadn't heard from her. Her bank account wasn't used. But it was nearly a week before anybody seemed to get really worried about it. She'd picked up the kids from school and then never went home, even though it was only about 10 minutes away from the school. Eventually, one of the 10-year-old son's friends mentioned that he was planning on trying to get his mom to go to get them a McFlurry. The nearest McDonald's was a town away. He eventually realized that instead of going straight home, she'd agreed to drive to McDonald's and gone the back way, part of which is along what we called the 40-foot, basically a massive dike. Found them all strapped into the car at the bottom. Husband was engaged again and his fiancée pregnant within a year. Number 3, Christmas break nightmare. I did my undergrad at a college in Vermont. In the winter, we would quite literally be snowed under. Over Christmas break, a sophomore went missing. He wasn't a close friend, but we had a couple of classes together. It was a small liberal arts college in a small town, so everyone in the community was pretty freaked out. His phone and wallet were left in his room. So the theory was that he'd been abducted, maybe even killed. Campus got real scary for a few months. There was police everywhere, helicopters overhead, students marching through the snow in lines looking for the body. Finally, when the snow and ice thawed, they found his body in the creek. Police presume he entered the water from the bridge in town. No one knows if he jumped or if he was pushed, and it still haunts me to this day. Number 4, my stepdad worked a case. My stepdad worked a case. My dad and my little brother and I lived in an apartment down the street from this 12-year-old girl that went missing. She was walking home at night and was abducted on her way. It was about 3 weeks until they found her, but the guy let the officers in, and right in the middle of the living room floor was her mangled remains. She had been cut up into pieces. Number 5, my niece Skylar went missing. Skylar's best friend since childhood and a new friend made in high school plotted Skylar's kidnapping and murder. They lured Skylar out of her home at 12:30 a.m. with the promise of socializing and smoking weed, as they'd done many times. Her friends drove her to Pennsylvania, took her into the woods, and stabbed her over 50 times. They then covered her body with rocks, mud, and sticks. During the investigation into her disappearance, the two friends helped Skylar's family distribute missing persons posters, reassuring the family that Skylar would be found soon. They were found guilty of murder and kidnapping. One was given 30 years, and the other a life sentence. When asked why they murdered Skylar, the only answer they had was, we didn't want to be her friend anymore. Skylar was only 16 years old. Number 6. I'm not a cop, but I track missing persons accounts for a bank in coordinates with the police. One day, a cop called and said that they wanted to track the accounts of a woman who had gone missing at the hands of an aggressive trafficker. The last transactions I could trace since she disappeared was one of our branches. I pulled the footage and the trafficker was pulling a bunch of money out of her account. I received an alert the next day from the account stating that a purchase was made. The purchase was a hardware store. Shortly after, the next purchase was a carpet cleaner rental. Needless to say, the cops contacted us and says they suspect he killed her, but they couldn't locate a body. Made me mad. Made me feel like I witnessed a murder through simple financial transactions. Number 7. A drunk guy who had a history of sleeping with some pretty weird places after a night out was potentially crushed to death after being loaded into the back of a trash truck from a bin he was sleeping in. Number 8. Brandon Lawson, he ran out of gas on the highway in the middle of the night and called his brother to come help him. Shortly after, he called 911 and reported that someone had chased him into the woods and that he needed police. Eventually, his brother and one police officer arrive on the scene to find his truck abandoned, but no sign of Brandon. Brandon calls his brother and says he's bleeding and is 10 minutes from his truck. That was the last anyone ever heard from him, and searches in the area turned up empty. Number 9. Our grandfather was a police officer, and he was part of the Metro Police for years in the UK. He's in his 80s now. So in the 1970s, he was given the case of a young girl, I think she was 16 or 17, who had gone missing and was part of the lead investigatory team. They interviewed thousands of people in the local area, a small town in Essex, England. Turns out, the girl had been basically beaten to death in the alleyway, just outside her house. She had been pushed through a hole in one of the fences that lined the alleyway, right up in the backyard of a house. So they'd search for her a really long time to find out all the while her body was laying in a rose bush in one of the neighbors' gardens. Super creepy, if you ask me. Also, turned out that when they caught the guy, he was responsible for killing another young girl, also in Essex. I wish I knew more, but there's really little information. Also, in a typical grandparent fashion, he only told me a story because I had been out drinking in a local pub, and it all started with,
I know that pub. The police held a huge celebration there one evening where I got punched in the head and lost all of my teeth.
what was it for?
Oh, they caught the killer.
And coincidentally, my parents and I moved into the same row of houses that backed the alleyway where the girl died 35 years ago. He didn't think to mention this story for 15 years. Number 10. A girl went missing. She was 12 years old. The whole town, state police, and I believe possibly the FBI all got involved. Search parties in the woods and through the streets for about 2 or 3 days. Turns out she had gone over to these kids' house that she knew from school to have them fix her bike. Turns out the kids, brothers, one 15 and the other 17, planned on stealing it. Well, she ended up in a struggle, and one of the other brothers wound up strangling her in his basement. She was found a few days after she went missing. The stuffed her body in a trash can on trash night. Number 11. My grandfather was a police officer and a fireman at different points in his life. His spooky disappearance story actually came from his time as a fireman. He hasn't told me the story in a long time, so I'm a little fuzzy on the details. His team gets a call to a house fire in a small village in rural England. It's late at night. The fire is reported by a local who was walking home. Several other bystanders have arrived by the time the fire engine gets there, and there are multiple reports of screams for help from inside the building. He starts to douse the fire, and 3 of the responders, including my granddad, enter the building via the back door to attempt to rescue the people trapped inside. The thing is, they didn't find anybody. Nobody was there. They clear the whole place out, stop the fire, effectively make the building safe. Later on, it's confirmed that the fire started in the kitchen, where the food was midway through being prepared. As far as anyone knew, the couple who had lived there had been at home. Relatives had no idea where they might have gone that night. My granddad and his colleagues had a funny feeling, so they get local police properly involved. Crime scene investigation uncovered blood on the floor in one room, but any other evidence was destroyed in the fire. They can't confirm who the blood belonged to. It apparently didn't match any of the blood types of the 2 who vanished. The fire department are very suspicious at this point, and apparently the police went to drop the investigation in favor of a manhunt for the missing people. But they ended up expanding the investigation radius and to find that apparently an unidentified van was parked outside of the house that night before the fire was reported. The investigation goes dead. But over a year later, they find the burned remains of a man who lived there in a grave in the woods several towns away. They never found the woman, so it was suspected that she killed him and burned down the house to conceal it. They never figured out where the screams from inside the building were coming from, though. Thank you for joining us on the Infiltrators Scary Stories. You could submit your stories to us if you have any scary stories at our website. The link will be in the description below. Also, do not forget to subscribe, and you can also listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. You can listen to it so many places. And make sure that you follow us so you can get notifications when we upload a new podcast. And when you subscribe, hit that bell icon so you can get notifications when we upload a new video. The Infiltrators is sponsored by Pretty Litter. Get 10% off your order right now if you go to bit.ly/getprettylitter. That's bit.ly/getprettylitter. bit.ly/getprettylitter. The Infiltrators is also sponsored by Purple Mattress. Purple Mattress is not your regular memory foam because it's not memory foam. It's a scientifically proven honeycomb pattern that is engineered to give you the best sleep possible. Get 10% off your order right now if you go to bit.ly/getpurplemattress. That's bit.ly/getpurplemattress. bit.ly/getpurplemattress. Sleep tight if you dare.